Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
A hybrid dock to take on DeX. Red iPhone looking tasty. New colours now to pimp your watch.
And who the hell is Bixby? Oh, it must be precious.
Plus, workflow for iOS and much more in a wedge-to-edge apple slice. We are an Apple-centric podcast, but before we begin, Nick, for those who haven't heard, who or what the heck is Bixby?
Bixby is the dog butler made by Samsung.
Yes.
Bixby is Samsung's virtual assistant, but more so helps with actions on the phone rather than searches and queries. So, for example, like rotate this photo and in future to be integrated with Samsung's other home devices like washing machines and fridges.
Yeah, I think the surprise here is that we knew and had mentioned about Samsung purchasing Viv, which, as some people may realise, it's kind of like the Siri team, then went to Viv. Now they're part of Samsung, but apparently Bixby is, purely separate from that. I like the idea behind it, changing focus of the personal assistant, but I think if it's kept in just that realm of being device local, you're probably going to need to use Bixby for that, as well as another personal assistant for the wider web-based information style, requests that you give. So to me, that seems pretty counterproductive.
Yeah. One of the examples that they're really happy about is show me photos from Melbourne, my Melbourne trip or something like that. And Siri's been capable of doing that for a while now. So it can do device local stuff and web searches. So yeah, it's just, I don't think it's a big threat to Siri. Pretty much everything that Bixby can do, I can sort of see Siri doing, except rotating a photo. But the other thing is that Google Assistant's ads that Telstra puts out are also very similar. It's like set a timer for 3 hours or wake me up at 6 a.m. And that stuff Siri could do from the very beginning. So,
I mean, we'll save talking about, Samsung S8 and that sort of thing. Put that aside. But yeah, the fact they gave it a dedicated Bixby button, which means they're kind of, as to whether that button is included on the S9 will kind of spell out how successful it was. But anyway, we're here to talk about Apple. And just before we get into it, the WWDC 2017 lottery is done. So the developers that won are being notified. Has a $15.99, that's $1,599 US ticket price. While that sounds quite expensive, to be able to attend an actual Apple event, particularly WWDC, would be amazing. So, kind of tempting to become a developer just to maybe win. So, all right. Product perception. So, we had previously covered betas of iOS 10.3, tvOS 10.2, macOS 10.12.4 and watchOS 3.2. Now, they've all been released now. Starting off with iOS 10.3, Find My AirPods. We already covered this, but have you, Nick, actually used that since?
I've tried to use it once and then it didn't actually work. So I don't really see myself using it too often. I think one of the most misleading things about Find My AirPods is the map, because it's not really reliable. It's not a live map, so you can't actually see where they are right then. It's a possible map of the last place they were last connected, so where they're disconnected. Same as when you park your car and it disconnects from Bluetooth. So I haven't really used it, and when I have tried to use it, it didn't work properly.
I think there's a reason it was kept for a point update. It's obviously not major draw card enough, and considering it's only just come out, and from the sounds of it, they've got some kinks to iron out there. So, but yeah, I was also pleased to find, I obviously wasn't running the iOS beta, but you were on your iPad, and when the actual public release came out, noticed the Podcasts app has added a widget and iMessage preview, so you can actually start playing an episode from within iMessage. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, considering a lot of other popular podcast players as well already had widgets, and it kind of made sense to just add that to the Apple one.
Yeah, the iMessage preview is pretty cool, because I've found a lot of times when sharing podcasts with friends that even though it opens the episode and it opens the podcast and then makes the episode that I shared a different color, they often get the question like, oh, is it this one that I'm supposed to listen to? So this at least just gets out any confusion and you can listen straight from there. And the other thing that I like about the widget is that I actually use widgets. So that's gone high up on my widget list. And so,
yeah, I chucked that at the top. I put that at the top.
And 3D Touch is great for the widgets, accessing widgets on icons, which I really miss on the iPad.
Yeah, I mean, we have to wait for an iPad event now to get that. But okay, tvOS 10.2. So some minor improvements there. The major thing linked to that, though, is an update to the TV Remote app.
I think there were some new screensavers that weren't mentioned that I've just noticed today. There was a Hollywood one, which I haven't seen before.
I've been noticing some new ones, but I haven't really been keeping track of it. All I know is that when I do see a new one, I'm like, that looks friggin' good.
Yeah.
They're all amazing. So, yeah, we'll have to definitely check that out. macOS 10.12.4 Night Shift, already covered this. I'm still using it. It's now rolled over to actually the 0.12.5 beta. But yeah, Night Shift, I use this every day. I use my MacBook Pro every morning, every night. And the biggest things that we want to talk about is in watchOS 3.2. So Nike Plus Watch has received new face colors that kind of coincide with these new band color releases. So for the digital face, you can have blue orbit, indigo, violet dust, light violet, and light bone. And for analog, you can have the same, but also with anthracite, which is that new dark black. So I obviously, not having the Series 2 Nike watch, I can't use these, but do you actually use any of the Nike watch faces?
No, very rarely. Usually only use them on a Saturday when I expect to go for a run. Then I set the watch face well in advance, whereas most times I'll just start the run from anywhere. And also, as I mentioned before, my favorite watch face is the activity one. So I get that I can add that as a widget, but just the way that the activity is located in that app is just unbeatable on any of the other watch faces. So yeah. Yeah, cool. But for people that don't have the Nike Plus, the standard watch now has new face colors, including pollen, mist blue, azure, camellia, flamingo, and pebble. I'm currently using azure, and mist blue I quite like as well. They're kind of this subtle grey bluey color. It works quite well. The only negative to it is that, yeah, with a Series 1, if it's bright outdoors, makes it that a little bit hard to see. But yeah, I mean, do you often fiddle around with color choice? Are you going to kind of try around a few of these options? No, almost never. I've just before the podcast changed, because I have 4 different watch faces that I cycle between. I've just then changed my one of the Nike digital ones to the blue orbit. Otherwise, I probably won't change any colors. I've pretty much used 2 watch faces in 2 years of having Apple Watch. So
yeah, okay. I think the hard thing for me is I was so used to having just white that when I did have a color, I was like, oh, this is cool. I can get used to this. And then as soon as I'm wearing something like a shirt that's got a different color than what's on the watch, I immediately want to change it back to white, because I'm like, oh, it feels like it's clashing now. So that's why I liked them releasing Azure, because it's blue, but it's bluey grey, so it kind of still ties in with everything. But I always love cycling through the colours, and I really, like, I'll come across, that bright orange or something. I'm like, yeah, this looks really good, but I'm just never game enough to actually commit to the change, because instantly I feel the clash between whatever else you're wearing. So, hey, if you're an Apple Watch user and you prefer bright and bold, then we'd definitely love to hear what your color choices are. But the other part to WatchOS 3.2 is cinema mode. And yes, it's actually called cinema mode. But yeah, the icon, it remained. We kind of thought, oh yeah, surely they're going to change this, maybe rename it, change that icon. But yeah, they just sort of rolled it out. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about this is so initially the icon was an eyesore and a point of contention, but then the other thing was its location in control center being quite close to the like ping your phone's button. And initially I thought, well, like surely you're not going to accidentally press that. And then I was testing it out at work and I did accidentally press that, and then I immediately had negative connotations with cinema mode. So when I go watch a movie in the next 2 weeks, I'll definitely be sure to try it out though.
I used it on Friday with Power Rangers. Funnily enough, it is a masks icon. A little bit of time there, but yeah, I think through all this discussion we had about, oh, they should rename it and the icon's not right. At the end of the day, I just flicked it up. I knew exactly where it was, what it meant. I enabled it. No problems. It worked perfectly. No disturbances. And it all just kind of didn't seem like a big deal in the end. I was like, this is handy. And it sort of didn't really bother me too much about the icon. I've sort of become used to it now. Certainly better than if it was a popcorn icon. But yeah, I still like your idea of having outline notifications. Like, I think that would be awesome. Send that to the suggestions box.
Yeah, I was just going to say I should suggest that. Although I think it's better to build these things and then have Apple buy the idea than to just randomly suggest free great ideas to them.
Exactly. But in the end, the fact it's called cinema mode is a big plus. So, Nick, there's one other small update out there. What's this one about? Yeah, this
is an update to iTunes, which I'm sure you'd know more about than I would, because we all know what a fan of iTunes I am. So there were some cool features and probably, again, some that you'd use more than I would. So there's the rent once, watch anywhere. Now, I've only rented a handful of movies before using iTunes, but I have actually run into the problem of starting on one device and wanting to continue on another device. So yeah, it's quite convenient. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, mostly if we do rent something, it's through Apple TV and we'll commit to watching it. But there have been occasions, yeah, where I've rented something and then you just sort of like, it was probably a bit too late when you started the movie and you think, oh, I kind of want to go to bed now. Maybe I want to finish it tomorrow or just finish it on the phone. And this allows that. So it's cool that you can just, any of those use cases where you want to start in one location, finish in another, different device is great. And I also think it'd be good for if you've already watched it and then you want to kind of tell someone about a movie and you're still within that rental time frame, that you could sort of just show them a scene from it that you really like, or if it's one of those kind of more psychological movies that you really got to look for the clues. I feel like it's a good way to just go back to the movie without having to watch it, say in my case, on Apple TV again.
Yeah, so I never really thought of that, but that's a really cool use case. How long do you have that you can watch a movie after you rented it? Or after started watching it?
Yeah, 2 days.
Yeah. So it's a month after you rent it and then 2 days from when you press play.
Yeah. So when you rent it, yeah, you can a month to start watching. And then once you start watching it, then you have 48 hours.
I never understand why the DVD rental machines are still going outside the Woolworths, but with features like this, they surely can't be around much longer.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other episode to talk about right there. But yeah, I mean, I've still, even now, I've explained the concept to my parents and that, because they still, readily go down to the Blockbuster and grab your new release and your weeklies or whatever. And yeah, I'm just like, yeah, Apple TV, I don't even have to leave the house. But their main thing is, well, what about those deals where, like, a new release plus X amount of weeklies for whatever? I'm like, okay, they don't really have that yet. I'm sure they could bring that to iTunes and Apple TV, but for me, it's usually just about, I want to see something new And it's cool because, as you know, with Apple TV, everything's there about the actors, a synopsis, runtime. And yeah, you don't have to, two good things. You don't have to head down to your DVD store, and you don't have to worry about a scratched DVD. I think now, with the amount of times that places like your Civic and Blockbuster have been out for, you're almost guaranteed to have to ask them to buff and clean the DVD first. Yeah. Because they're getting worse and worse. I actually did a physical DVD rental a few months ago, and the thing froze like 6 times. I thought, this sucks.
Yep.
I was like, why don't we just use the Apple TV?
Yeah.
So
bet you won't be doing that again.
Yeah, definitely not. Okay, so we had a mini-sode before this called Bonus Bite, and we covered new products. Now, we were going to cover Apple's new Snapchat killer called Clips, but Nick suggested that we hold off on this until it actually comes out, so we have proper hands-on experience, but definitely stay tuned for that. But the red iPhone, the one that everyone's talking about, the one that I'm very jealous that you got to go see in store. So tell us about your experience there.
I headed out to the Bondi Apple store, which was on our Instagram, which you can get the handle later on to follow us on Instagram. But I checked out the red iPhone, which immediately, before I even walked in the doors, I could see that they were proudly on display. They had about 6 of them, 3 normal iPhone 7s and then 3 iPhone 7 Pluses. And the red is really amazing. It's this deep red. It's really striking. It's not cheap looking at all. One of the things that really concerned me with the red iPhone was that it would look almost like cheap in real life, or
plasticky or something,
or just not well done. I'm a fan of most product red stuff, but for example, the iPod Touch just is not really striking. It's not really beautiful, whereas this is like a really deep, nice red. And the white front really works, I think, on the 7, but I'm not sure about the 7 Plus. I know it sounds weird, but just something about the dimensions for me on the bigger one aren't as good looking as the normal iPhone 7. So yeah, it's really cool. Obviously, feature wise, it's exactly the same as all the other iPhone 7s and 7 Pluses. Price wise, same for the same storage, but looks, it's really cool, and you'll definitely stand out if you get one. And of course, a portion of the proceeds go to supporting Red, as we mentioned before, which are a charity to fight AIDS.
Oh, definitely. I think it's a great combination there. It's for a good cause, and it just looks awesome. I love that little bit of footage that you got of where it caught the shine across the back of it. I mean, that is still, to me, one of the factors I love the most about the aluminium casing on the iPhone, is just when it catches that subtle bit of light. It's not, it doesn't look plasticky. It looks premium, feels smooth in the hand. And yeah, to me, based on those images and footage that you got, it's exactly as I imagined.
One of the other things that's worth mentioning about it is Apple's attention to detail. So, obviously Apple is famous for their attention to detail, but there were a couple of things mentioned, one of them being the silver Touch ID ring. But it works with the silver Apple logo on the back, and I think a red ring would have just looked cheap. And additionally, on the mute switch, on all other iPhones, it's orange, the little mute indicator when mute is enabled. But on the red iPhone, it's actually white, because with that red and orange, there wouldn't have been enough contrast to actually be able to tell whether it was enabled or not. So just that tiny little piece someone had seen and thought of, which I expect and always like from Apple. So
do you think in retrospect that they should have offered white and black front options?
No, I think they should. I'm happy they stuck with one. Which one doesn't really matter to me, but I think it's better than having both. I kind of was thinking the other day, I wonder if they would possibly change that, run through all of their currently made models and then just change it. That would, I don't think they ever would, but I did think about it.
Did it ever cross your mind that they may have had like leftover white fronts to use?
No.
Hence the choice?
I don't think so. I think it was because they already made that red and white decision with the iPod Nano that it originally came with, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And speaking of other things you saw in store, the new watch bands, all the nylons in their tricolour awesomeness. So what are these actually like in real life? Because it's always hard with nylon to tell based on the awesome images they have on the website.
So they are quite different looking. I think if you have a favorite beforehand, it might change when you actually get in store. So they are very bright. As they say, they are the new colors for spring, which is great for us going into autumn. But they're really bright. They're pretty cool. One of the things is they were all already on display. The selection of bands that you can order originally, as we mentioned before, is now cut down. So you could just buy sport bands with the Milanese loop, which was represented in their case, in their table. They had much less variety than they used to have. And interestingly enough, they also put the I forgot the name. It's like the new grey color. Pebble? Yeah, it's Pebble. They put the Pebble leather band on the black, it's called the not jet black, sport black, space black. That's the one. I always, I usually get it right.
The stainless steel space black.
They put it on the space black watch face, which, then has the silver lugs and the black watch face, which I never expected Apple to do. But yes, all looks good. They all have their own unique sort of draw points. I, for one, am still a fan of the pearl band, which has been around for a while, but midnight blue I think would go well with my space grey watch. What about you? Yeah,
I'm still, at least based on the images online, midnight blue is a good choice. So you actually got to see that.
No, they only had the tri-color ones out. The thing that I will mention on the cases quickly, they obviously have the cases in the same colors, and the berry color that comes in the leather case looks so good. It's more of a female case, but it looks so good with the jet black phone. We tried it on Michelle's phone, and it just looks absolutely awesome. So yeah, that's the new cases are really cool too. Yeah, I did mention that in the bonus bite that berry color I really liked. While I may not, use it myself, I was really drawn to it. It's just got that deep kind of richness to it. But it carries through in person too. Oh, definitely. And lastly, iPad discovered that the new / old iPad is not. Everyone's saying, it's just iPad Air 1 kind of, updated. Well, it's actually got a 44% brighter screen, so that's a little bit of added incentive there. So since we briefly discussed it, have you had any additional thoughts about this, or do you kind of feel like they've just still of the mindset that they've created this lower priced product for that specific market that we were discussing? Unfortunately, I haven't gotten a chance to actually see it and get my hands on it. So I have had some more thought about it. I think I still maintain that it's designed to reinvigorate the market, get the people who are still stuck on the old iPads to get a new one. And I like the strategy. I think I wonder if they could have. I'm trying to think of, with the same exact product, how they could have marketed it a little bit differently. And a lot of that comes down to the increased battery life that we should expect from it. It has bigger battery, more efficient processor, so surely it should have better battery life. And they've just gone, it has 10 hours. And I think, why do people upgrade things? As crazy as it sounds, people update their operating system for new emoji and they upgrade their phone because their battery life is dying. Those are two very simplistic realities. So I think they could have done that. I think they should have run some ads for it, or at least some presentation video that features the type of demographic we were talking about. That makes sense to me. Yeah, the product page picture sort of sells it perfectly. It's got multitasking right there on the very first like on the image, on the marketing image, they have multitasking showing this is a powerful iPad, has features that the other iPads didn't have. You can use it for work and for chatting at the same time. The only thing is it just doesn't have like full pro features, but as a standalone device, it's perfectly capable.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to think of some additional aspects to this. It now just simply called iPad, so there's this real more separation between iPad and iPad Pro, and I kind of feel like that they may add rose gold within a year to it, just to kind of keep it ticking along.
Why do you think they didn't do that originally?
I really don't know. I was just expecting, when I saw the image, something immediately felt missing, and it was just the lack of rose gold there. To me, that seems like a perfect color option that they should have included.
Yeah, I find it strange that they didn't, especially now that they've simplified all of their product lines. Across almost all of them, they have rose gold. So yeah, if you look at like the iPhone lineup and the iPad lineups, it's literally like the only device without rose gold. So it's a bit strange.
Yeah, I do think, yeah, give it within this year and they'll just quietly add it in there. And so we said we wanted an iPad event. We were waiting for it, expecting it in March. It didn't happen. But now I feel like with the iPhone, the big redesign for the iPhone, they're going to use that in September as the big wow factor, with then redesigned iPad Pros in both sizes in an event after September. So do you feel like that's more realistic?
Yeah, we sort of had this feeling before the announcement came. We weren't sure whether there was going to be the event or not, and I sort of at that time felt that if there wasn't an event, iPhone is their big money maker and it's their big feature differentiator. You know, everything is always coming to iPhone first. I was originally quite surprised to find out that the bezel-less first bezel-less device would be an iPad. Obviously it isn't. So yeah, I think the iPhone will get it first. Hopefully shortly followed with a similarly spec to iPad.
Yeah, probably October event. Initially we were talking about an October event being held for the Macs, but maybe that will be iPad and a Mac event will happen some other time.
Yeah.
Before then, hopefully.
The other thing, speaking of specs, is the iPad, it does have a 44% brighter display, but it also has 2 gigs of RAM, which is in line with 9.7-inch iPad Pro, which
cool.
And the other thing was that it's got pretty good, because it has the A9 processor, it has pretty good benchmark speeds and doesn't have a laminated display. So I know we had previously spoken about how important the True Tone and really good color reproduction parts of a display are, how important that is. And so with this display not being laminated, it does affect how good the display is, not all about pixels and brightness. So it's good enough for for most people that have had iPad 2, 3 and 4 and Air, because it has better specs. But if you've had a laminated display, it might be difficult to go back.
Yeah, definitely. As we explained, they've set this mid-tier kind of market for the product. So yeah, I guess now we just twiddle our thumbs until a redesign is revealed, hopefully October for iPad. Okay, moving on to pick a patent. An iPhone MacBook hybrid. So a patent was published where if you imagine getting an iPhone and placing it inside what is the trackpad area of a MacBook, so there's like a recess there. Now this is kind of referred to as a dumb terminal, in the sense that it's very similar, according to the illustrations in the patent, very similar to the MacBook design, but it's not an actual laptop. It's purely running off the iPhone that you place within it. Now, there is a HP Elite laptop which exists, which is a similar idea, except for this patent uses the iPhone as the trackpad. Now, it hints at this dock, let's call it, having an integrated GPU for the display. Just so it's not completely going to, drain your iPhone. So this was kind of left field. What do you think about this idea? I mean, can you see it happening in a year? I don't know.
I could see it probably happening in 3 years, and I would expect the dock to also have significant battery of its own, so battery and integrated GPU, and I don't see it being really difficult. I think the iPhone is super powerful. It's just a case of what does it run when it gets docked? Does it run macOS or does it run iOS?
Yeah, and there was this talk of there being like an OS, an Apple OS that's halfway between the two. Now, if you try to think of how this is going to work, Samsung revealed their own dock called DeX, a short naming for desktop experience. Terrible name. I'm just thinking of teenagers at festivals on drugs. But anyway, it's a puck style dock that you kind of flip open and you place your S8 in, so it's only can be used with S8. It's USB-C connected, but it has to be wired to a monitor. Now, it will sell for $199 Australian, so it's actually quite affordable. Now, it uses a custom Android desktop OS, which I feel, it's all well and good to look at the images of it, but I think in actual life, along with a lot of large screen attempts that there has been with Android, such as, Android tablet apps and stuff, they're generally going to be pretty disappointing. It all sounds well and good, but I think I'm going to have to see it to really believe it. Now, the cool thing is this puck is portable, but having a wired display requirement kind of makes it non-portable, really, compared to this patent of this Apple MacBook style dock. So, yeah, I kind of feel like by the time if Apple release something like this, that Samsung will have released something more like this Apple one, where it's an actual kind of clamshell design.
Yeah, what I could imagine, I was just thinking about it now, where I could see this being actually useful. So I started thinking about it in a traditional workspace like ours, where you probably have a desk or at least a range of desks that you could work at. You just come into work and plug in your phone, and that didn't really seem useful for me. But then I was thinking about like a shared workspace where, they have different companies in the same same office space. This is more like a freelancer type vibe, or, freelance designers and writers, or people that usually work from home but need to go in for meetings or things like that. I'm sure people are familiar with shared workspaces, but that I think could be a cool space for this, where you just plug in your phone and then you've got your desktop, but they've got all like the docks there. That could be useful.
What I think Samsung DeX will be good for, presuming the software thing works out, is for people like salesmen and just people that you go in store and they're showing you their products on their, well, they'd have the S8, and then, inputting your details and finishing the sales process by putting the phone in the DeX. And then they've got a bit more of that interactivity. And because essentially what it's doing is it's not just an enlarged app, it's more like a desktop style. So that I think that would be the advantage of something like this, because it would already be fixed in place to the monitor rather than having to carry it around.
Yeah, the only thing is I don't think it has a desktop class browser. So I agree with your situation.
Yeah, it's like this halfway point.
That just really adds a lot of limitation to this being a full-time work solution. So, yeah.
Ultimately, the survival of this and this kind of area of products will be how well they can make use of a larger screen, in the sense that it's kind of like turning your phone into a desktop computer. So I feel like this area has a long way to go, but I definitely kudos to Samsung for taking the leap with that. But yeah, this Apple one we're talking about seems already based on the patent a lot more aligned to that HP Elite lap dock, but I feel like if Apple continued down this road, I'd be very interested to see what they do with it. But I think some of the questions I was thinking about it is, how would the actual MacBook shell dock itself accommodate different iPhone sizes? Like, would the recess be sized at the largest iPhone, and then how would it hold a smaller iPhone? Or would it be specific to one iPhone model?
Yeah, I can't think of it being specific to one iPhone model, just because I don't think they would expect people to upgrade too often. I'm not really sure exactly what they could do. You know, do you remember how they used to have different dock snap-in pieces for the different iPods? So it had the same connector, but it sort of had different mold for each.
Yeah.
So you could just snap in and out. They could just have like a horizontal snap-in one for each of the different sizes. So like the same way it kind of sits in that plastic shell in the box when you buy it, could have something very similar to that.
Something like that. I think another option as a way of doing away with having snapping in place is magnets. Obviously designed as to not ruin your phone, but imagine just, you know, kind of like how when you put your watch on top of the little puck charger, it just kind of magnetically holds itself in place centrally. Enough that if you were to lift this clamshell dock up and hold it upside down, that the phone wouldn't fall out.
The only thing is I wouldn't expect it to be raised up, like at a higher level compared to the rest of the MacBook. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what they come back with.
Yeah. And I mean, this sort of thing, as Nick's sort of thinking, 3 years away, so we'll check in on it now and then, but I certainly think it's an interesting space because it's something new. They haven't done too much in the way of hybrid stuff yet, and there has been more and more talk of people wanting this type of thing. So yeah, if you're interested in checking out what Samsung DeX is all about, look it up. It's just DEX, but yeah, we'll definitely keep you informed of this new product line. So we want to move on to our favourite subject, Deal Down Under. Well, that's fine, but we're back to talking about Apple Pay. So
no good news.
Finally, no good news. Well, slightly good news. I always say that. But Nick, what happened this time?
Yeah, so we had spoken before about it when we last discussed the latest, and the latest was that the four banks, but so Commonwealth, Westpac, NAB, and Bendigo Bank were seeking permission from the ACCC to we're seeking permission from the ACCC to collectively negotiate with Apple, which was denied, which is great because banks shouldn't be able to negotiate collectively, because I see that as collusion, which is fundamentally against capitalism and sort of exactly what Australia's economy is built on. So I don't see that as being good at all. Their main arguing point was that they wanted Apple to open up the NFC chip because they said it reduced competition. What I found really interesting in the ruling was that they ruled that if they did allow this, it would reduce innovation in the market. So by sort of declining this request to collectively negotiate, the ACCC was going back to the banks and saying, come up with your own thing. Do your own thing. Forget about the phone then. Come up with a new wearable that can make payments. Change up the card. Do something that isn't, do something that doesn't require Apple's NFC chip and force them to do something different, or accept Apple's NFC chip. Just do something that is innovative, which I found fantastic.
It's a real like it or lump it sort of.
Yeah, but also like, don't pretend that this is the only way. Yes, Apple Pay is, along with Samsung Pay and Android Pay, are really good payment methods. I love using them and I go to great lengths to use them. But that's not to say that for the rest of time they'll be the best way to pay.
Yeah.
So if you don't like this solution, come up with something else.
I am glad that they were denied. I was feeling like that was going to happen. So, and like clockwork, it did.
But even if we weren't fans of Apple, if we were fans of banks not all collectively negotiating to screw us over, then we should have all been hoping for this. Because
when he just said that, I was picturing like, welcome to the let's stop banks collectively getting together to screw us over club.
That should be a legit plan because it is ridiculous. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I just think, as I've said before, just roll it out already. And as, ACCC posed to them, come up with something better yourself if you don't want to play ball. But more and more, I mean, ANZ were running some Apple Watch.
Did you notice anything
Apple Pay adverts?
Funny about that advert?
The ones on social media or?
Just, the watch one where they've got the nylon band on a silver watch, the pearl nylon band, and they just tap. Do you notice anything on that one? It's quite obscure.
I was more reading the comments, but what did you pick up?
Right. So basically, they've got the watch band the wrong way around. They've got it inside out. So I don't know how they physically put it on, but because the way the nylon strap would go would be on the inside, but you can actually see the size marker on near the where the wrist meets, where the watch face meets the watch band. So yeah, it's irritates me every time I see it. But
here I was thinking that ANZ had everything sorted, but now it's
good for them for having Apple Pay in the first place. But I don't know why they couldn't just put. The thing is, the watch comes with the band on the right way.
Yeah, but aside from that, I just checked out the comments, and man, it's just hate on the big banks in there. I mean, there's a few people being like trying to ask ANZ about something completely unrelated, but yeah, I joined in some of the discussion, but yeah, there's some big discussions about exactly what's happening, and everyone's like, oh, Commonwealth and Westpac and NAB are suing Apple, and people are like, no, they're actually suing Apple. ACCC said this, and so that's quite funny. There's some kind of confusion there, but
people are really not smart with this stuff.
Yeah, but I think generally it's good to see that people want it. There's still, the longer this goes on, the more aggro people are actually getting at their own banks for not supporting it.
Yeah.
And, I just, as I've said at least 5 times before, something's got to give. So I'm still just waiting.
The one comment I did notice was someone saying it's a hassle to get up the payment screen on Apple Pay, which it's not that I've heard of way more high profile people that should know how to do this. You don't need to actually press anything on the iPhone to get Apple Pay up. When it reads a reader, it will just ask for a thumbprint. You don't need to do the double click. You don't need to go to wallet and then you literally just hold in front and put it on your thumb. That's it. So, for anyone who hasn't used it before, when you do get around to using it, it's as easy as that, and a double click on the long button on your watch.
I think some people, they had that confusion about how you actually do it. And in this comment thread on this ANZ advert, they were just like, oh, it's easier to get my card out and, PayPass. And it's like, you do realize that, as you just pointed out, it's not a lengthy process.
Yeah. Especially on the wrist. The wrist is a lot quicker than the phone.
Yeah, you don't have to pull out your wallet. So, anyway, I will hope, just fingers crossed, everything crossed, that Commonwealth will play ball and I will actually get to use it one day. So, moving on to something completely different. Appetizers. An app called Workflow. Now, this has always previously existed, but what has Apple done with Workflow?
Yeah, so Apple's bought Workflow, which is in its name, a workflow management app, so you can do different tasks. When they bought it, they removed support for WhatsApp, Google Maps, or Street View. One of the things that you used to be able to do was, for a calendar, get the Street View image for it. Removed support for Chrome Read It Later, which is an app by Pocket, which I used to use, no longer use, since the days of Safari Reading List. So, Uber, I So I read that they removed Uber, but I've still got the Action on my workflow app. Telegram, which is Telegram, it's a messaging app.
Well, it just says now instead of Telegram, it defaults to Microsoft Translate. Yeah. So there's no Google Translate.
Right.
It like Apple previously using Bing and other things, it uses, Microsoft
and
Translate.
Then there's still plenty of third-party app support. So I've not managed to get any working really well. I must say, I don't know if I'm just being like a bit of an oldie with this stuff.
No,
but
man. Lot of trial and error.
Yeah, I've been battling. So some of the ones that I have at least set up, but not actually used, because I have been battling, are request Uber, play the entire current album, which is great for if I Shazam a song or just have one of the songs. Just play the entire album, capture a note, capture a voice note and add it to notes. Top stories from Apple News, add more from artists, share location, and ETA to home.
Okay, so these are all pre-existing.
Yeah, I haven't set up any on my own, like a extensive workflow.
Yeah, okay. So I was really keen to try this out. It took a bit of trial and error to get it working, but I created one called web-to-image. So I weekly do updates for a string of local cinemas, and I have to get the web page timetable, convert it, I do it all within my phone, and normally this is a multi-app process, but I have to convert that to a PDF, convert the PDF to an image, and then upload the image in Hootsuite or whatever management platform I'm using. So now I created one called Web-to-Image. It's an Action extension, so I go straight to the web page, and then from the share sheet, I trigger workflow. It converts the page to a PDF, the PDF to a JPEG, saves the JPEG to camera roll, then opens the share sheet for that JPEG, of which I can then go to whatever app I need to use. It was just amazing to see it work, because as I said, a bit of trial and error, but to see the steps flowing through, and it's instantly saved me, a good few minutes per timetable I have to do. So that I was really stoked with. And I quickly tested out one called GIF to tweet, because you can name these and change the icons, which is really cool too. The extensive array of icons and colors. It's just like this customization. This is awesome. But this one, it's just a regular workflow. And what it does is you trigger it, you select the images, it creates a GIF from the images. And in the settings, you can actually set the timing and whether it loops and that sort of thing. And then that GIF is then pops up as a tweet from within workflow, and then I can tweet it. Because I've always just thought, what if you just want to quickly create your own GIF from some images, or even from a video, which you can also create a variation where you can select frames from a video. I think there's going to be heaps of more stuff in there to play with, but these are two that I tried out and used. And I think the best part about this as well is, while Apple, upon purchasing, did remove certain, support for apps, particularly Google related, it is free. So it's no longer $2.99. It's free. Go and get it. Have a play around with it and see how you can improve your own workflow.
I was having a think about it, and I was wondering, can you think of why Apple actually bought Workflow?
See, this is the thing. I'm wondering whether they've bought it, made the necessary changes in terms of removing any kind of ties to Google, and then they're going to redesign it. Or they're going to probably keep the name, but they're going to Applefy it. You know what I mean? Like, will we see it at WWDC? That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Do we know how much they paid for it?
Didn't look into that. All I saw, the headline was Apple buys Workflow, it's free. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get it again. Because I previously had actually got Workflow, and it was free at the time, and this wasn't too long ago. So I think this was kind of before the actual announcement. But
because I was thinking about it, and I can't come up with a reason why Apple needed to buy them, because all of what this app does is just leveraging really well off built-in OS level and programming capabilities that Apple built in. So I just don't understand why they couldn't pay 10 engineers to recreate this app in 3 months.
Maybe they just figured that I know Workflow already had so much potential, and maybe they're going to do a big tie-in to improve Siri with it and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I understand buying when there's IP. I just don't see the IP in this case. Unless it was literally just a case of, just money being more worth it just to buy them.
Maybe they could see the potential in Workflow, or there were potentially other people wanting to buy them. And Apple thought,
maybe it was a competitive buy.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see them, if they don't do anything with it beyond this point, hey, cool. It's still free. It's still awesome. And I can't wait to kind of try out some more workflows. But hey, if they do actually kind of take it on and rebrand it per se, and even have at WWDC, which would be a great place to debut it, that gives them a few months to kind of implement some changes, that would be cool. All right, Nick, brought us to the end. You managed to survive, unfortunately, under the waves of a cold at the moment. But
I nearly coughed out half my lung, but where to follow Apple Slice. So you can follow Apple Slice on Instagram and Facebook, Apple Slice Podcast for the handles and extensions there, and then on Twitter at Apple Slice AU, and then you can email us, which is a new thing that we've organized, which you can email us at listen@appleslice.com.au.
And of course, if you haven't subscribed, then search Apple Slice in your podcast player, popular ones including Podcast app, Stitcher, TuneIn, Pocket Casts, and basically wherever you listen. Rate and review on iTunes, please. That would be very much appreciated. But I know how hard it is to kind of ask for reviews these days. But hey, if you're feeling a bit of love for Apple Slice, that would be very much appreciated. So finally, before we wrap it up, do you have anything else to add?
No, that's all from me.
I'd just like to point out that we are not Google Pie, aside from my April Fool's Day post. And the next episode marks a special milestone for Apple Slice. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. So it's been good talking to you, Nick. Glad that you held in for the whole episode there.
Yeah, you too.
All right, I'll catch you later.
Cheers.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.